Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning back in to another episode of the Kickback, man. Today we have a very special guest. We are bringing on Pastor Abdullah Birdsong to the show. He is my spiritual mentor, my personal pastor. He works in healthcare. He does real estate, man. He has a lot of different ventures, man. And this man is a person that I look up to. He's very brilliant. He's very smart, and I hope you guys can tune in and learn and glean from the conversation, man. We touched on so many topics from fatherhood to leadership to humility, a lot of different things that I think you guys may be able to learn from. So, man, go ahead, grab your popcorn, sit back, relax, and thanks for tuning in to the Kickback. Peace. First and foremost, man, Pastor A, welcome. I'm happy that you're here.
Welcome. Thank you, man.
We've been talking about this off scene for a little while now. You know, we play golf every now and then, and you know, some of the conversations that we have just as men on the golf course. I thought, man, look, we might as well just put up a camera and do an episode on the Kickback, right? So, I mean, first and foremost, man, I know the audience, everyone may not be familiar with who you are, what you are. Just give us a background as to who Pastor A is and how did you get to this point in your life?
Well, man, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the Kickback. I think you're doing a great work, touching many lives, impacting people. So I think, this is absolutely needed.
Appreciate
the
it.
sound that's coming from you will change many lives. So keep going, man.
Oh, man, appreciate that.
So a little bit about me. So originally from Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay.
I'm a Southern guy. Moved to Charlotte about 15, almost 16 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things, man. God has blessed me with so many opportunities and so many gifts. I've been a musician.
Wow.
I've been in public education, in healthcare now, and in ministry. And just, how I got to today has really been grace.
Right.
It's been the opportunity to kind of understand what God has called me to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's a progressive journey.
Absolutely.
And I say this, I can't give any credit but to God for where I am, because it's Him who sustained me. So, some education things, went to college, Morehouse, grad school for music, and recently I've launched out on something really awesome, man.
Talk to me.
So I was accepted into the Doctor of Strategic Leadership program.
Oh, wow.
At
Are
Liberty
we breaking news on the Kickback?
This is breaking news, man. Breaking news,
y'all hear
man.
that? Say that one more time for the people that didn't catch it the first time.
So the Doctor of Strategic Leadership at Liberty University. It's a terminal doctorate. It's a practical degree, man. Where God has me and how He's using me in both ministry and the marketplace.
Absolutely.
I want to be that guy that can help lead a new paradigm shift in leadership development, consulting, and just best practices, not only for people who look like me, but
Absolutely.
people who are just hungry for that next level in their lives and in their organization. So I'm blessed, man. Classes start like really soon, so keep a brother
That's
in
what's up.
prayer.
No, for sure, man. Hey, we'll definitely keep you lifted here on this platform. Me and my wife will be sure to include you in our mornings as well. Like that's phenomenal, man. I know your heart, like when it comes to leadership, which that's one thing I'm really big on here at Boardroom Vision, and you guys have probably seen it throughout a lot of our interviews. But like leadership is one of those things that, number one, I think there is a lack thereof, and number two, when it comes to the Black experience, I think it takes good leaders to really go into a room and be able to bring that, I guess, foresight and background while standing firm and not folding to the majority's mind frame sometimes. So I commend you, man. And that actually is a perfect segue. Let's talk about leadership for a little bit, because as a pastor of a church, climbing the corporate ladder within healthcare, like what are some of your biggest attributes or things that you think it takes to be a good leader?
Well, for me, and I tell leaders all over the nation that I consult with, it starts with integrity. It starts with having a very firm moral compass and ethical compass for how you're going to help, because leadership is influence.
Absolutely.
So leadership is about helping somebody move from A to B, or whatever that destiny, whatever that point of goal or value is. It's also the unearthing of value in people and in processes. So when you are really helping people identify how they can lead, more effectively in their organizations, they start to see themselves as partakers, but also promoters of that value. So for me, it starts with integrity. You know, it bleeds over into character. Of course, hard work, dedication, you know, emotional intelligence, knowing yourself, knowing who you're serving is very vital. And just continuing to try to replicate the principles that you know are the things that can help people move along the various stages of their life.
Oh man, that's beautiful, because it's funny, man. Like, you know, we're on YouTube, and you guys are probably going to see this, you know, looking at this video, or even if you move to other videos. Like, whenever I'm on YouTube, there are like those ads that come up, right? It's like, hey, you know, you want passive income. And like, it's guys that are, you know, showing their Rolex watches and their chains and pouring out champagne. And it's like, for me, that just doesn't move me to click on the ad, because what I value is a little different at this point in my life. And trust me, it has not always been that way. So, you know, I definitely want to be upfront there. But as I moved into a different place in my life and tried to exhibit leadership qualities, it took me going back to, number one, get in tune with my faith and trying to find, like, all right, what are the morals and values that I can actually stand on and replicate on a daily basis. And to me, it sounds as if those are some of the principles that you're teaching, but also it goes hand in hand with your faith.
Absolutely.
Like, so can you explain that bridge a little bit as to, like, how does faith go into your leadership journey?
Absolutely. So I look at the best model that we've ever had for leadership, and that's Jesus.
Absolutely.
Jesus was the consummate leader. He did all things right. He did things that people hadn't even thought could be done yet.
That's real. We call Jesus the realest dude that ever walked the earth.
Absolutely. So I look at his paradigm, and one of the things that I really ask others to do, that I am constantly assessing myself on also, is the level of service. I'm really big on servant leadership. Robert Greenleaf, for all the leadership buffs out there, they know Robert Greenleaf is kind of like the father of servant leadership. But really, the thought that others come first. And in order to make that happen, you have to be authentic to yourself.
Absolutely.
Because if you are, let's say you're coaching or you're consulting with someone who has more credentials or has more experience than you might have, you have to be comfortable in knowing who you are and that you still are positioned and readied to serve whomever it may be. Whether it be the Fortune 500 CEO, whether it be the person on the corner who just needs some hope. You know, so for me, you know, that Jesus model of leadership, which was unorthodox. It was out of the box. It made a lot of people uneasy.
For sure.
You know, people misconstrued what Jesus was about, because they really thought that if he's going to be this king of the Jews, he's here to rescue us from Roman oppression.
And rule here on earth.
For sure. Exactly. So the Jesus came as a lamb. He came as a suffering servant.
As a kingdom leader.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so we lead from a place of servitude, and we lead from a kind of a paradigm or perspective that others are first. And as I take care of the needs of others, I have someone who's going to take care of my needs, that being God.
That's real.
Father. Yeah.
And it's funny because, and this is for those that have watched the Stack episode, these are parallels. Like, it goes hand in hand, what you're saying, right? Because it's counter culture, right? You know, from what our world tells us, it's, you know, climb your way to the top, you know, step on anybody it takes to get there. You know, you don't have to have any more. As long as you end up with a big house and a pocket full of cash, you're deemed successful. But I mean, I know I don't measure success in that way. Number one, I measure success in a fashion that, where did you start? Where did you end? And what was the process it took to get there? Because just because you have $1 million in the bank don't mean you're successful. You could have inherited that $1 million and lived a life that was, you know, not benefiting anyone else. And it's just like, okay, but if you grew up in the hood, started with 20,000 and worked your way to $1 million off integrity and values, it hits a little different for me. So, I mean, to what you're saying, man, this is a real good conversation.
And here's what you don't have to worry about if you really are serving and leading from a servant's mentality and heart. there's a quote that says, "He who has the answers or the solution will always be paid."
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So some of the things that I've experienced in leadership, and I've had a lot of opportunities. I've had, the cars, I've had the houses at an early age.
Right.
From just a human perspective, they're like, that dude Abdullah, he's balling.
Right.
But I know what it means to have all of the accoutrements, but none of the peace.
Ooh.
I know what it means to have the bank account with the comma and the zeros,
right,
and still be in debt to everybody, because
I've been
you live in that lifestyle, you live in that facade, and still not being fulfilled on the inside. And you know this because we have a relationship, but God took myself and my wife down to almost nothing. When we came to Charlotte, we didn't have anything.
For those that don't know the story, if you don't mind, share that a little bit. Because I think that's a powerful testimony that I think anyone could glean from.
So I was that dude. I started playing piano at 4 years old.
Absolutely.
So at the age of 11, my mother, being business-minded, decided, okay, I need to take this cat out and let him play for some churches. And so it was not uncommon for me to be 13 years old making $250 a week.
Wow. Young entrepreneur.
Young entrepreneur. I'm in the grind. I'm playing for church. Not living worth anything. Right. Just people were.
But you had a talent, and it was easy to be placed in a place, especially of church that is a good place. It's surrounded in a good environment.
Absolutely. So did that for years. Never had a problem getting a job playing at someone's church. But I take you to an experience that I had in college. It was my senior year of college, and I was wilding out. I was wilding out, but no one in the church was calling me on the carpet for my stuff.
Morehouse man, by the way.
Yeah. Morehouse represent. So I'm in Atlanta. So let me give you the ratio. 1995 to 1999.
Oh, I can imagine.
You had 4 schools.
Those are the times.
You had Morehouse, Spelman, Clark Atlanta, Morris Brown. All in what we call the Atlanta University Center.
And that little radius.
It's
actually right there where the new stadium is at now.
Exactly. Not too far from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The ratio of women to men
I can imagine
was 14 to 1.
And you got your stuff together, you're in college. I can imagine.
So I had the nice car, I had the decent clothes, I was living in the honors dorm, the only dorm on campus at the time that had air conditioning.
Oh wow.
And I was wilding out. I mean, I would literally go and play for church on Sunday morning, and go to party on Sunday night,
man,
and shut the club
because Atlanta club scene is like Sunday night is the night.
It is the night,
right?
So did all of that, lived through all of that, but I had this experience in church. I was playing one Sunday, and I blacked out, and I woke up in one of the offices of the church. And I asked the nurse, I said, hey, what happened? She's like, just drink this orange juice. Maybe your blood sugar is low, whatever. But you essentially blacked out while you were playing. So I come back in the sanctuary to finish the rest of the service. And I had brought a girl from Spelman to church. Now, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. And me and that girl, we were not doing what we, you know what I'm saying?
Right, I got you.
But she was crying when I looked at her from the piano. So after church, I said, hey, let's go grab something to eat. She said, no, you got to take me right back to campus.
Why is that?
She said, you got something on your life, and I'm not going to let you mess it up. And I'm not going to be a part of you messing it up.
Wow. You think God spoke to her?
Oh, yes. That was my moment. Wow. God was like, cut it off.
Wow.
Be done.
That's wow.
I dropped her off at campus and never saw her again.
Man.
And I've had those moments in my life. Another one was when I met my wife, Marcia. She was all about God, and she said, with no uncertain terms, you're not gonna cross this road until we get married. We're not gonna live together. And what I did is I built a house in Birmingham. We were not married. I built a house in Birmingham from the ground up, new construction. I went back home and lived with my parents, and I moved my fiance into the house.
to keep the purity because of the faith at this time of your life. Because you moved on from the wild nowadays. You find a woman that you really taking serious. You're in love with her, and you know that this is the one. So you're like, I'm gonna do this the right way.
Absolutely.
That's admirable.
Absolutely. And when I went back home, my stepfather, who practically raised me, said, "What are you doing at my house? You just built a house. You just closed on a house."
Right.
I said, "Well, I'm going to put Marsha in that house. I'm coming back home to live with you because I just feel like I got to do this differently."
Right.
So we did that. We eventually got married. But right before we got married, man, maybe two and a half months before we got married, my mother passed away unexpectedly. And that shook my world. But what it really shook me to was my knees. It took me to a place of faith and dependence on God. Fast forward, Marsha and I are living together. I've moved on from some opportunities, and I took a risk of faith to take a pay cut and ended up working for an organization that was having money problems. Didn't know that until we were kind of embedded in that organization. And there were times when we didn't get paid. And both myself and my wife were working for the same company. And they would send the CFO down the hall
to have that conversation.
And I said, wow, there were times when we didn't have anything to pay the bills, or they would threaten to come take the car, X, Y, and Z. But one of the things that always stuck with me was that things like that are temporary.
Absolutely.
Things are temporary. And it really taught me how to lead, not only as a young husband, but it taught me how to lead as a man, because I really had to step up and believe in something bigger than I was.
Man, that's good.
Because I had exhausted all of my means. I had exhausted I was thinking about everything. I was thinking about passive income. Can I make this everything, hustle, grind? At the end of it, man, we had to trust God. God said, move to Charlotte. We put our house on the market in Alabama. It sold in less than 24 hours. Wow. So now we got a problem.
And when is this? Give us a time range.
This is like 2005.
Okay, so this is right before 2008 when thing. Okay.
Yeah. So 2005, we move here, and we move up to Charlotte, and we move in with my sister-in-law, who had a beautiful home over in Waxhaw.
Gotcha.
5 bedrooms, wonderful community.
Anybody knows Waxhaw in the Charlotte area? It's the area.
I mean,
a lot of Panther players over there, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and she was single. Had all that space. I'm like, wow, this is gonna be good. We can take our time, ease into Charlotte, this and that other. I come home from work. Now, here's the humbling part. I have all these degrees coming to Charlotte. You know what my first job was in Charlotte?
Tell us.
I was working at the Nike factory store in Concord Mills. I had gone from being someone who was making almost 6 figures to making about $8.20 something an hour.
Let's stop there for a second, because that within itself says a lot. Number one, about character, but about you as an individual, right? Like you said, that's the humbling part. Like being able to still, to your point, provide leadership as a man and say, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes to provide.
Absolutely.
Like, where does that come from?
That comes from a drive to just provide and to be an example.
Right.
I knew that I had success on the inside of me.
Right.
But that success was being fought on every hand by this nagging doubt that I was going to fail. I dealt with a fear of failure for a long time. So, a lot of decisions that I made then were made from a lens of fear.
Right.
And those decisions never panned out. They ended up being things that put stress and strain on my marriage, on my relationships, and things of that sort. So, we move in with my sister-in-law, and I'm thinking I got it made until she announces one day at dinner that she had sold her house.
Ooh.
And I'm like, so where are we gonna go?
Right.
My pod.
I don't know where you gotta go. You gotta get out of here.
Right. My pod is just fresh out of your driveway.
Wow.
We practically kind of homeless.
Yeah.
So we called up our pastors. They're still our pastors to this day, Keith and Carolyn Spellman.
Shout out to Bold Inc., by the way.
Bold Inc., the bomb. We stayed with them for, I think it was like 3 months. They welcomed us with open arms. But I tell you what, I really learned how to pray and to seek God while I was in their house.
Man.
I never forget, man. I came home from work one day, and here it is. I'm working at the Nike factory store in Concord Mills. The Spellmans live in Southwest Charlotte. And we had at the time a Mustang.
Right.
So you can imagine that my little salary was being eaten up by gas.
Oh yeah, that gas. I forgot the gas.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Is that the same one with the loud engine Pastor Marsha always talks about?
Yes,
yeah.
You could hear it coming down the street. She's a muscle car fanatic. But I was eating up my salary, and I knew it was grace because the person who was the manager of the store at that time was an acquaintance of mine. And I was in the interview. They did a group interview with 4 of us. And the other 3 were sneakerheads. I didn't know much about the Nike brand. I mean, I had British Knights growing up. Stuff like that.
So you telling your age a little bit
there.
So I know our audience is like, what?
BKs, right? And so I don't know how I got. Well, I do know how I got that job. She gave me that job because the other 3 candidates were so much more of the sneaker culture. They could, they knew all the stuff like that. I was just like, I know how to convince people to buy stuff.
Right.
They were like, that's all we need. So, that was, very humbling. Stocking shoes and wiping down stuff. I'll never forget. I had to go in and clean out one of the dressing rooms because someone had left a diaper in there from where baby had pooped and stuff. I was like, and sometimes, and then they give you a free pair of shoes to work in. So I picked like the most comfortable shoe I could find in the store.
Absolutely, you're gonna be on your feet all day. You gotta be comfortable.
They don't make a shoe good enough to stand up 8 hours in. It just, that was the first time I ever had swollen feet. Calluses on my feet. I was working, but I was grinding, but I was doing it for a greater purpose.
Gotcha.
I was doing it to remind myself that I really do have it within me.
You had a vision.
I have a vision.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I knew that that time that I was going through wasn't going to be locked in. I knew that God was going to do something. I didn't know how He was going to do it.
Right.
But God was going to do something. Series of events, jobs, opportunities, just absolute grace and favor start to flood in. But it was from that place of humility, that place of integrity, that place of really understanding that I've been called to something greater than me. And it's not so much my strength that helps me get there. It is that I got the backing of God, His Spirit, and people who are praying for me.
That's dope.
To help me get there.
And it's interesting, right? Because it could have went a different way, right? And I say that meaning a lot of people in your situation coming from making 6 figures and going to the Nike outlet, like you could have had your chest stuck out. I'm not taking that job, and that's beneath me, and oftentimes when people go in that route, and not I'm generalizing here, but like it often leads to a place of depression or just other things if you aren't willing to submit, because now you're waiting on this same ideal opportunity that you had, where sometimes you have to start at the bottom again and grind up like that. And that's just life. Sometimes we get hit with certain things that just aren't fair. Life is unfair sometimes.
Yeah.
But how are you going to work out of it? Like, what type of plans are you going to create? And I know, because we've talked offline, you, Pastor Marsha, you guys were creating strategies in those moments still, creating budgets in those moments still to get out of the situation that you guys were in. And that's so important when it comes to success, when it comes to fulfilling your purpose and pushing forward. Like, you have to have some type of vision to get past where you are at that moment.
Absolutely, man. So what I didn't say, and I'm going to throw this out here, I know this is for someone. In order for us to get to Charlotte, we had to hear a definite word from God.
What did that sound like?
It sounded like us on our faces and fasting for 21 days. Okay. During those 21 days, I received 2 job offers. One in Houston and one in Nashville. Both of those job offers were 6 figures. And when we heard Charlotte, and I had to go back, and one of those job offers was a place that I dreamt about working at. Even as a teenager. I said, if I'm going to work somewhere, I'm going to go there.
I mean, Houston.
So here's how it went down. I get a random phone call from the leader of that organization, and he asks me, do I want the job?
Wow.
And I'm like, I haven't applied for any job. He's like, you know what job I'm talking about. He was really, really just cut and dry. He's like, I know who you are. Your work speaks for itself. You've been highly recommended. I'm coming after you. And he said, so when can you come out here and we finalize it?
Wow.
And I say to him, I don't know. I have to check with my wife. I have to check my calendar, this and the other. I'm currently in a position, I'm finishing up school. He says, I can have you here tomorrow. And I laughed.
How so?
Right. How so?
Like, wait, I'm in Alabama. That's going to take a while. I got some stuff I need to get.
You're in Texas. I'm in Alabama. I can have you here tomorrow. And I said, can you tell me what do you mean by you can have me there? He's like, I'll send my plane.
It's amazing.
Marsha came home and I said, babe, the dream job just called me out the blue. I don't even know how this dude got my number.
Wow.
And she looked at me with a straight face and she said, you know you got to tell him no, right? I said, what do you mean? She says, we're supposed to be in Charlotte. You know that. I know that. Okay.
Obedience, man.
That call, I know he thought I was on some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
He was like, you turning me down? I said, yes. He said, how about this? How about you come to Houston for 1 year? And I told him why we were coming to Charlotte, which was to start Dunamis Church.
Right.
He said, come for 1 year and I'll send you with whatever check you want to Charlotte to start your church. I need you for at least 1 year. I said, Marsha, he came back, he counter offered.
Wow.
And she said, God says the time is now.
Wow. That's obedience, man.
Yeah.
That's obedience. That's crazy obedience.
But I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because my wife and I, we would not be walking. I don't even think that we would have connected.
Nah, we wouldn't.
Had everything lined up the way God wanted it to line up.
That's amazing, man. Like, and it just shows obedience. And like for the fasting process, man, like that is something I strongly recommend for anyone that's trying to get reconnected to God, anyone that has big decisions before they're trying to decide which way to go. It honestly just clears the clutter, man, and it helps. It really does help. Yeah, man, like fasting is one of those things that honestly it just helps, man. Like, and for me, whenever I was coming back into Christ, like, and he could probably attest to this, we were going through the marriage counseling process. Like, they were our marriage counselors, and I can honestly say they challenged us. Like, you're gonna fast before you get married, right? I'm like, huh? Like, well, what's a fast? But no, I mean, they gave us parameters and they gave us an idea of what it is. You sustain from certain things for a certain period of time. Like, it can be TV, it can be food. Like, for our case, it was all the above. Like, honestly, we did a Daniel fast for 21 days, just connecting with the Lord, really trying to understand where he wanted us, the importance of marriage, and just our approach to it at the time. Like, some of the decisions we were going to make going down that process. And for me, it was one of the best things of my life, because at that point we were just coming back into Christ, but that catapulted us into a different level, because like, for me, marriage is one of those things that's just sacred. You know what I mean? I grew up single parent household, and I knew I never wanted to go through any type of divorce. And for that to happen, especially coming from the past that I've had, I was going to have to know what God's intention of marriage is and how I can implement that into my own life. And you can't implement something if you don't know what it is. So I started reading the Word again, trying to get an idea like, okay, this is how it's supposed to go, and slowly implementing those things. And man, that Word, when you start reading it, it's really like a mirror, man. Like, you start looking at it and be like, yo, my life ain't lined up nothing like this. And it at least starts giving you some direction as to where you should go. I mean, it's not for me, it wasn't a complete change overnight, and I still got a long way to go. But you start to see like, all right, that's the target, even though I thought this was the target. Because in our society, we can say, oh, he's a good guy. What does that mean? By whose standard? It's all relative when you say a person is good. But what's good compared to God's standards? And that was the thing that kind of pushed my mind frame and mindset to a whole different level. And I mean, honestly, it's been one of those things, to your point, that just allows you to see things a lot clearer and make those decisions when you got 6 figures on the line and you can turn it down and comfortably walk away from it. That takes a different type of level with spirituality.
Absolutely, man. I don't make any big decisions without fasting.
That's real.
And if you look at it from a biblical perspective, let's take Daniel. Daniel had a spirit of excellence like few others in the Bible. I mean, the rise that he made, through the ranks and being able to just remain constant in his faith and to put the real weight of success in the right places. When it came, he said, hey, we're not going to eat from the king's table.
Right.
We're going to take another way and see after a certain period of time.
Absolutely.
If we and the Bible says that after they had done the Daniel fast,
right.
the juice, the water and the fruit and the vegetables, after they had done that, they came out looking better,
stronger
than the people who ate all of the stuff from the abundance from the table. So less is really more, and it really helps you center. It helps you really understand timing. It helps really, fasting just helps you get your soul under control, your mind, your will, your emotions. Because sometimes we could be trying to go 10,000 miles per hour.
That's real.
Because we gotta have this before I gotta be this before I'm 30. I gotta be this before I'm 35. I gotta be this, gotta be this, gotta be that. And what fasting does is allows you to just take a step back, hear God clearly. I love what you said about clear the clutter, man.
For real.
Because you never know how much clutter you have until it's time to move. And when it's time to move, you got to be in a place to move. And be ready to move. And so, when God began to introduce, fasting, really introduced it to me through my wife, because she was already living a fasted lifestyle, even when I met her.
Yeah, that's important too. And sorry to just interject, the importance of having a woman that's going to push you to be a better man, while also allowing you to lead like that within itself is a whole different conversation. But I wanted to highlight that because it's that's an important thing when it comes to marriage and just relationships.
Absolutely. There are just some things that she is non-negotiable on because she knows, because we are fit and fashioned together in marriage, she knows, she hears from God about me.
Right.
And she creates atmospheres and environments and I want to say principles for us to walk out because she knows what God has placed in my life. So there are guardrails that are in place from her perspective to say, we're not going to do this. We're not going to even entertain that. We're not going to respond to that. We're not going to put our energy towards that because I know what God has put inside of you. And my job is to feed that, not fleece it.
That's so good. Man, I can go a lot of different ways. I'm going to put a pin there. We're going to come back to that because I want to talk about marriage specifically.
Okay.
But I do want to get to all right, now you turn down the 100K. You moved to Charlotte. You are staying at your sister-in-law's house. She just said, hey, I just sold the house too. You go to your pastor's house, there for a couple months, and now where does that place you on your journey?
The favor
floods
in.
It
floods in. So we find a new construction neighborhood, a house, a spec home, that is about 60% done. We go to the realtor. I don't have any good credit to speak of. Neither really does my wife, but we're working on it.
Right.
We're working on debt. We're working on making the right moves. But we have an agent who is speaking on our behalf, and really, that agent has been our agent from then to now, even with any investment properties we've had. Just period. We had to put our faith on it. Long story short, we got that house.
Right.
Beautiful house. It was bigger than the house in Birmingham. Okay, so we get that house. Increase.
Yeah.
God says, all right, you're here, you're in Charlotte, you're working. At this time, I'm a high school music teacher. Still not, and watch this. My wife is an administrative assistant at Bank of America.
Okay.
and making more money than me.
Okay.
So I'm a teacher.
Right.
And I'm barely making $32,000.
So it's a modest household income.
Modest, yeah.
Gotcha.
Living by budget.
Yep.
Watching what we spend.
Right.
And things of that sort.
These
So
the bologna sandwich days.
Yes.
He loved the bologna sandwich.
Come on, somebody. Fried bologna, egg, and cheese.
I can respect
on
it.
white bread, mustard, mayo. Let's go. As a matter of fact, I came home yesterday, or maybe the day before yesterday, and I knew the aroma as soon as I got in the garage. My wife had fixed her one by herself. I said, "Babe, what's up? Where's mine?" She's like, "Baby, it was good."
This is the question I gotta ask: mayo meaning Dukes or mayo meaning Miracle Whip?
Oh man, don't you put no Miracle Whip on
Oh
my sandwich.
no! All right. I'm
Let me have some.
I'm gonna let you slide.
Let me have some Dukes.
All right.
But yeah, man, those days, and I was believing God, for some big stuff,
Right.
And I got mad at God one time because I was like, man, we're struggling.
Right.
But you talking about tithing and you this and that and the other. So I got mad at God and I wrote it on a piece of paper and I slapped it on the refrigerator and I said, you got to help us do this.
Right.
And from that point on, we've been tithing. Every check we get, before we spend anything, we're probably writing a check, for that. And that was, very pivotal for us because it helped us put perspective on finances and on our terms.
Sure.
And it seemed like the moment we de-emphasized all of the lack that we thought we were feeling, that was when God could feel our hearts. Yeah, that was the shift.
The posture is always the most important thing.
When money wasn't a God anymore.
That's real.
When money wasn't anything that would potentially keep us awake at night.
Right.
Now my wife has always been able, she's not worried about money, never been worried about money. But I came from a background where there was a high value placed on how money made you look.
Absolutely, I get it.
You know what I'm saying?
I get it.
So there were lots of facades and things of that sort. So, one of the things that is my testimony, and I share with as many people as I can, is that I grew up in what you would call a middle to upper middle class African American household.
Okay.
Educated parents, great jobs, nice house, a Benz and a Beamer.
Right.
But after both of my parents died, I began to see a lot of that was a facade. That there was a lot of stress, that there was a lot of contention.
Right.
Keeping up appearances takes a lot of work.
Yeah, trust me, my whole early 20s was a lot of that.
So I said, okay, God, I wanna do this differently. Did I lose some friends? Yeah. Did some family members turn their back on me?
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
I thank God even now a lot of those relationships are coming full circle and we're in conversations again and we're understanding each other again and there's reconciliation and healing happening. But when I left Birmingham, which was my familiar territory, I really came into a nothingness, and that nothingness was so refreshing. So we in this house, we live in this house, and Marsha and I get a call from our realtor, again, the same lady, and she says, I found a house. You want to take a look at it? And we're like, we're fine. We don't have to move. She's like, you guys might like this.
Favor.
So we go and we look at this house it was dark. And the house was dark and it was on this street that didn't have a whole lot of lighting. But we went into this house. Again, we're not on the market. And it's absolutely everything that we had dreamed of. Absolutely everything, Ben. So we walked through this house and we split up. And I go upstairs and my wife stays around walking.
That's how you know it's a nice house. When you can just split up and get lost.
I mean, and
that says a lot.
This house is 3 times the size of our first house.
Right.
We're just like, wow, I was like, this is great. Here's where my son, at this time, the Lord has blessed us, with a son, and he's, growing up, and it's like he could have almost his own wing. And I could have my man cave with the big screen, and my wife could have
watch your Alabama games.
Roll Tide.
He's a big Roll Tide guy, by the way.
Roll Tide. So I'm just like, okay, this is nice. So as I'm walking down the steps, Ben, the Lord says to me, when you get to the kitchen, look at your wife's face. And when I get to the kitchen, I see Marsha's face, and she has this look on her face like, this is it. I'm not looking for a house.
Man.
We write up a contract. Now, right before we came to the table, this was an older home built in an executive neighborhood that had just been flipped by a developer. So there were upgrades everywhere.
Right.
I mean, I had a Gagano stove. Y'all know what a Gagano stove is?
I don't know what that is. What is that?
It's a French stove.
Ooh.
I mean, French oven. Gagano oven. French
Oh,
oven.
gotcha. Huh.
I went on eBay just to find out how much it was. It was a $6,000 oven.
Wow.
They put all these upgrades in this house. I'm like, this is great. This is wonderful. The developer could not sell it. And after we moved in, we found out that we got to the table right after he had lowered it $25K.
Wow.
And he lowered it some more because upon inspection, we were like, hey, either you fix this or you got to, come off your price, because we're in negotiation mode. We get this house for just absolutely crazy amount of money. Just wow. We walk in with equity. Just
wow. Already.
Crazy equity already.
And we've had that conversation on this show as well. Equity in real estate is one of the most important assets that you possibly can have. Equity is that thing where if you pay $200 for something and it's worth $300, that's $100,000 of your money. Like, it's a very important concept in real estate. If you haven't checked out our episode with Calvin Cleveland. Like, it is one that is when we stress a lot here on this show. That's how we accumulate wealth within our community.
Absolutely. Real estate is my number one vehicle
for sure
to wealth. So we get this house, man, and we move in, and it is just absolutely a phenomenal home. We loved our time there. And then we get another inclination that it's time to move. So we moved our son from a school in extreme northern Charlotte to a school in southeastern Charlotte.
Right.
So before we moved into the present home we have, my commute to take him to school was 45 minutes each way.
Man.
And that was
an hour and a half on the road each day just by itself going to school.
Well, I'm working from home, so that's 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back home, 45 minutes there to pick him up, 45 minutes back home.
Yeah.
I'm in a 3-hour, 20-minute school commute every day.
Wow.
But we knew he was supposed to be in this new school.
Right.
We knew it was pivotal. We heard that from the Lord. But then the Lord said, I'm going to give you the opportunity to move closer to that school so you can make a life in that other part.
Wow.
So again, we're not needing another house. We just need a better location. We had been into the subdivision that we live in now a couple times in the past.
Right.
God has, can I put a pin something?
Go ahead.
God has a way of kind of previewing. If you allow him to do it, he'll preview what you're going to walk into. So if I go back to Birmingham, my wife and I used to go play in Toyota Sequoias.
Oh, yeah.
at Sarah Toyota
Got a dream.
in Birmingham.
Got a dream.
And I don't know why these people did this, Ben, but they would leave the cars on their lot unlocked. We would go and sit in the Sequoia and be like, man, this is bomb.
Imagining a better life, getting a vision is an important thing we're seeing here.
Dude, and guess what we got? A Sequoia.
Man.
We would go play in model homes.
Yep.
And God would give us a new home.
Usually unexpected from each conversation has been, hey, we aren't looking, but we're prepared. That's the other thing, right?
Yes.
You have to be prepared and be in position, or at least trying to get in position to, when you find the deal, you're able to strike.
Right. So again, it's time to move. We got the equity in that house. We lived in that house, and we also had another property on the other side of town. We kept that. Had some renters in it. The renters left. We were like, oh gosh, we're not sure about this part of the county. We don't know, what's happening with the property values. It seemed like over a 2-month period, the property value shot up, and we cashed out on that house. We cashed out on the house that we were in, so we could get to the house that we're in now. Money in the bank, reserves, all that great old stuff. But then God says, it's time for you to be a blessing. So we're talking with our realtor, the person we've been with for over 15 years.
Right.
And we know that there are some people who are members of our church
Right.
who have been trying to get into our former neighborhood,
Right.
and would love that opportunity.
Right.
So I called the realtor. I said, hey, do you think they would want our house? And as soon as she called, they were like, absolutely. So we ended up selling our last home to people who were members of our church.
Man.
And we didn't give them a discount or anything like that.
Right.
We were like, hey, you're perfectly able to come in,
Absolutely,
and assume this house.
Absolutely.
And we'll move on. So that's the transfer. That's the transfer.
But it says a lot when you start to, like, as a leader, you're building people up around you, right? So now it puts other people in position to, hey, you know, we all have nice things now. Number one, because our priorities are right. We are taking on the right posture of being able to look at things through the right lens, and also being able to just help someone out from a kingdom perspective. Like, this is what it's about, like being able to reach, and not only from a kingdom perspective, but from a community perspective. When you talk about the African American lens, like, we don't do enough of that. Like, reaching out to our friends, reaching out to close associates to get deals done within our community, man. Like,
absolutely,
that's the most beautiful part, I'm hearing right now. That's super dope.
Yeah. So I just, you know, it's been just one move of grace and faith. From a career perspective, you know, I'm co-vocational.
Right.
So I'm in healthcare. I'm in my I call it my little niche.
Right.
I'm in strategy.
Right.
You know, and strategy and leadership go just like this.
Right.
You know, so I'm able to help provide value. Right. You know, for our leaders in information technology, for our leaders in the clinical areas. I'm helping roadmap and really chart the course. You know, the hospital system I work for, we just bought another hospital system. So I'm on the integration team with that, helping understand what the value streams are there. Wow. It all melds together.
And that's not bad for a man that came to Charlotte and was working at the Nike outlet to now be a strategist at a prominent healthcare. Like, just seeing that journey, you went from Nike to school system, and then to, like, healthcare. Like, those are three different fields, but that has to be the favor of God to be able to articulate yourself into those positions, man. And, you know, we've been talking a lot, you know, just about finances and real estate and things of that nature. Like, I think it's worth for me to say, like, he's not a pastor that is in church trying to, you know, come bring up, you know, doing $100 lines and none of that stuff. Like, he's not that guy. Like, his money is coming from outside ventures. This is why in the beginning I called him a tent maker, because, like, he's not putting a burden on his congregation to keep up with his lifestyle. His lifestyle is being developed through ambition, through purpose, outside of what he loves doing from a ministry perspective. Like, and that's just, man, that's
the first 9, almost 10 years of our church history, I didn't take a salary,
man,
at all.
Wow.
I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want anybody to say that the pastor's driving that because of my tithes.
And honestly, that is one of the reasons a lot of people run from church, because they look at, like, the whole quote unquote scheme, and it's like, man, you're not gonna, you know, be in my pocket all day and then, you know, be out here living a certain way. Like, this man beside me is a man of integrity, and he truly tries to live out what he preaches about. And that's one of the things I really respect about you. That's why I love being at Dunamis. And I mean, again, you watched us come in and just grow in our spiritual journey. It's been a beautiful thing to just watch from you guys' lens as well, because when we first got there, it was a, you know, small church off Independence, man. Now, I mean, off Independence, but now you're established in the Mint Hill area. To see you're rooted in this community, as well as the surrounding Charlotte, like, God, you can see God moving in it. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. All right, man. I tell you, man, we've had some really, really good conversation thus far. We've gotten to know you as a pastor, you as a husband, you as an entrepreneur, as a associate and strategist as well. But I guess from a leadership perspective, from a perspective of, you know, allowing our audience to glean a little bit more from you. What would you say to the young man right now that's watching this, who is in a position where he wants to get closer to God? He is the person that's responsible for his family, but his options just are limited. He either has the opportunity to, he can go scam to pay his bills today, either it being whatever scam he has going on, or just not have enough to make it. Like, what would you kind of guide or pull out or tell that young man in that type of environment or that type of time?
So I would say, Ben, life is full of choices.
For sure.
Full of decisions. And, a lot of times it's easy to feel like I don't have the options that I wish I had.
For sure.
I'm locked into a certain cycle.
Absolutely.
I want to tell that young man that, number one, if you truly want to get to know God, also know that God truly wants to get to know you. And that he already knows a lot about you, and that he wants to improve your situation. You can't, you will never find a case where when someone wants and truly, wants to see God, right, and know him better, that God responds with don't worry about that. You go your way, I go my way.
Right, absolutely.
There's always a connection, and a lot of that connection comes from God revealing to you, number one, how much you're loved. The struggle is real.
Absolutely.
The hurt is there, the disappointment is there. Take it from me. I was a young man in my 20s. I dealt with chronic discouragement,
right,
chronic fear, chronic feeling like I had been rejected.
Absolutely.
Spirit of rejection, because I was different. And I was making decisions that were not aiming me towards God's best for my life.
Decisions to fit in, decisions to cope or deal with whatever you're dealing with. Like, and it's funny you say that, because I experienced a lot of that as well, right? Not more so fear, but like the wanting to not stand out as much as God probably was calling me to at those times, right? To be cool, to, whatever the case may be. And that usually lends itself to, alcohol abuse, marijuana abuse, abusing women, not abusing women, but overindulging in sex, for lack of better words, so on and so forth. Like, it comes out in a lot of different ways. But again, when you look in that mirror, for me, that mirror being the word, you start seeing how your life don't align. But you were telling the young man that having that genuine want is something, obviously, that it's a good thing.
It's a great thing.
But how do you harness that energy into, like, what's the next step?
The next step is to, discover as much as you can about what you want. So if you want more of God, just like if you want a better job, you're going to do your research.
For sure.
Just if you want a certain type of woman, you're going to do your research.
For sure.
You're going to align yourself in certain ways to make sure that you're in the best possible position.
For sure.
I'm always encouraging people in their walk, their journey with God, that no perfect people are allowed. So you got to take the pressure off of yourself that you got to be a certain this before God will love you. God loves you right now. He wants to prosper you right now. He wants to see you come out of that rut or out of that cycle right now. I remember very clearly in my 20s, my favorite drink of choice was Bailey's.
Right.
And I remember sipping on some Bailey's and God saying to me, if you take another sip, you're going to slip. Your life is going to spiral out of control. And that meant something to me that it didn't mean to the people around me.
Right.
Because what they didn't know is that my mother was an alcoholic at one time, that my grandfather was an alcoholic, that my great-grandfather was an alcoholic. So
it's breaking the generational curse type thing.
Exactly.
And that's become a cool saying these days, but I don't think we've actually delved into it enough to where, and when I say we, I'm meaning our community, it's just a cool thing to say, but like, are we really trying to break those curses? And are we really trying to, like, do the due diligence to uncover and unravel that trauma that a lot of us have experienced, either being from our childhood or from a bad relationship or whatever life experiences you have gone through. Like there's something that needs to be healed at the root for us to be better and move past.
Absolutely. So to that young man, I would say, press into God. If it costs you relationships with associates, then you have to, we call it cost benefit analysis, or risk benefit analysis. Are you willing to risk perhaps a season of what is seemingly isolation so that God can add to you, so that God can continue to expand you, and your knowledge of Him, your ability in Him? There could be a gift lying dormant on the inside of you that is waiting on that decision.
Right.
We talked about being humble earlier, but if you look at a skyscraper, the tallest buildings have the deepest basement.
That's real.
Because you got to dig down before you build up.
That's real.
So you could be in your digging down stage. You could be in that place where it seems like, man, I'm going down, but you're really being set up to support the infrastructure of something that's really significant.
That's good. And you said something that I can attach to. It can unlock the potential inside you. That could be the $1 million idea that changes your options from, scamming, selling drugs, or, working at a minimum wage job to like something to where you can acquire generational wealth. And that's even driven to a different level because now you're doing it for purpose and a stronger why, as opposed to just trying to do it for a check. Because doing it for a check oftentimes you get burnt out, you get tired, you're usually going to resent, your manager or the people that you're dealing with, because it's all extrinsically motivated. When you look inside and talk to God and really identify what's in there and it starts to come out, you'll do it for free. And it becomes fun. Like that's we're just saying we could do stuff like this
absolutely all day long
for free. Like this is fun, man.
Yeah. So for me, everything is tied to purpose, and I have multiple prayers that I pray.
For sure.
But there's one prayer that I pray every morning before my feet hit the floor.
What's that?
And it's really my vision statement, my personal vision statement. And it goes like this. God, help me to be of greatest use to the maximum number of people according to your plans and purpose.
That's good.
Whatever part of my life that needs to be, whether that's the strategist, who's working through mergers and acquisitions, whether that's the pastor, whether that is the father, Lord, please let it be the father.
Right, absolutely.
The husband,
absolutely.
The author, the consultant, whatever it is. And sometimes that maximum number is one or two people.
Right.
And then sometimes that maximum number is a webinar with hundreds.
Right.
So you got to be willing to allow God to prepare you for each and every instance of how you walk out your purpose. And to be honest with you, I'm not that old. I'm in my early 40s.
Right, but you got the wisdom, man.
But I've been through enough that I'm at the point in my life where I'm not doing or engaging in anything that isn't attached to my purpose.
That's real.
Man, the most powerful word I discovered in my early 40s was the power of no.
That's real. Even that's hard to do sometimes. But I think when you have a strong purpose, it allows you to say no a lot easier, right? And I use this example. This is something I implemented at the beginning of the year. We had a conversation about this. I got my little notebooks here. I start writing down my weekly to-do list, and I would oftentimes get random things coming at me through the week. And I would look at my to-do list and some stuff may be good stuff. Like, people want me to go help out with the homeless, so on and so forth. But I couldn't do that, even though it's a good thing. It wasn't on my list for that week because I know God was doing something and other stuff took priority at that moment. So I had to say no. And I had a stronger reason for saying no because I didn't want to get out of priority. And that was so powerful for me because it's like, okay, it's okay sometimes. Right. And people will understand because you have a legitimate reason behind it. Now, some people won't, but to his point, you can't be mad when separation starts to happen, because are they really your friends anyway if they don't understand those type of decisions?
I know that this guy is my guy because I'm peeping. Y'all don't see this, but you got to understand that you got to know your why. He has this book off camera over here. Start with your why. This dude sound is this is the stuff right there, man. People don't buy the product; they buy the why.
That's absolutely correct.
You know, so when I go in and everywhere you go, until you tell somebody something different, you have value. Now, if you are all over the place, you're not prepared, you haven't studied, you haven't done what you need to do, then every moment you're in a room and you're unprepared or you're not where you should be, your value prop goes down. And people remember that. So that's why it's so important that I align everything with my purpose, because if I'm operating in my purpose, it's easy for me. Yeah, I do have those moments of rigor where God shifts and changes and causes me to transform in certain areas. But for example, you know, preaching and teaching the Word of God is my lifeblood. I could lay everything else down and just do that. But I also know that I have a purpose to be just as much Abdullah in the pulpit, in the marketplace, as I am in ministry. So no longer am I trying to choose one or the other. I know who I am, and because I know who I am, I'm going to be who I need to be wherever the seat is.
Identity. I having a strong identity, and it starts with your why. Like, what is it? Like, is it to provide for your family, to be a good father? For me, it's to prepare, motivate, and inspire men to be better leaders. You know what I mean? Like, we all have different whys, and they can adjust depending on what the audience is. But what drives us, that it's important, man. It really, really is. Now, this is good, man. And it also, to me, sounds like mindset is a big part of this, right? Being able to identify, like, all right, I got to switch my mind state from where I'm currently at because it's not working, to something that can be a little bit more positive, something that can be a little bit more, that can just draw better fruit for the goals and things that I'm trying to accomplish. And I think that's a perfect segue to talk about your book, right? It's called Renovating the Mind, written by Pastor A. You can check it out on Amazon. I'll provide a link here as well. But, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about this book, the inspiration behind it, and, I mean, how you got to that point as an author?
Yeah, man. So, just very quickly, it took me forever to write that book. When I tell you that book is my mental journey. From having all of the things that everybody else thought would make me successful, but having none of the inner peace and none of the inner assurance that I was good enough. I mean, I was reading it again recently, and the book is 8-9 years old now, but I was reading about how I really struggle to understand why God even put me here.
Purpose.
Purpose. I had seen, man, you get to a point sometimes you see too much and you're like, I can't even process all of that.
Absolutely.
You know. But it took me almost 5 or 6 years to write this little book, because it was a write, live, write, live, write, live. So there's not a whole bunch of what somebody else has said. This is the stuff that Abdullah has had to live. And I take the grand kind of analogy of a renovation project. And you can go in and you can do little cosmetic things and, you know, throw something back on the market or whatever, only for the next owner to realize they didn't go behind the wall. But when you open up a wall, you might find stuff that's out of code. And the inspector is not going to let you close that wall back up until you bring stuff up to code. So this book was about me coming up to code with what God has really called, you know, me to do. And the renovation is something that is God inspired and Holy Spirit driven.
That's dope.
So it's a great thing, and you know, it's still blessing people, and I'm still honored that people finding insight and light, you know, from that. I got another one coming out.
Oh man, tell us about it. And by this time it might be out. We don't know.
No, it's not quite out yet. It's called Goodbye Average.
Okay. All right.
And the whole premise of it is God has not called you to live an average life.
I agree 1000% with that.
Really, God has called us to live extraordinary lives.
Yep, I agree.
Of impact and influence.
I agree.
And I use the analogy of in a couple chapters about dating, and when you fall in love and you find out, oh, maybe this ain't what I thought it was going to be. How do you get out of that long-term relationship of making excuses, of living below the bar? I said to someone recently, it's dangerous to be good enough not to be bad, but not good enough to be great.
That's middle class.
Yeah, some of us
real.
are living just enough, and we don't want to be great because we don't want what comes with great. Great gets put under the microscope. Extraordinary. That's extraordinary.
Man, me and Anya was talking about that the other day. Actually, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
so
good.
I'm excited about that. We put in the finishing edits on it. Hopefully, New Year we be ready to roll with that, man. And I'm gonna take that one a couple steps further with a webinar. Would love for you to contribute to that.
Oh man, I would
love to. I'm putting them on the spot.
I would love to.
And a e-course associated with
For
that.
sure.
Really helping people understand that they have been fearfully, wonderfully made for significant impact in their homes, and in their businesses and things of that sort.
Oh man, see, this is what this is about, man. Like, when I had this vision, man, I literally was in Dunamis Sanctuary, and it was like a Wednesday night prayer when I was going down the life coaching process, because the class had already started. It was 1 week started, and the teacher had reached out to me because she had got wind that this was something I was looking into, and we had conversations before. She was like, yeah, I mean, if you want to join, come join. So I went into Wednesday night prayer, literally prayed, and was like, is this the time, man? Is it now? So on and so forth. And God spoke to me so clear and said, suddenly, move suddenly. So I was obedient, went through the process, and just going through it, man. Like, because a lot of what I work with my clients, with the people I consult with, it's a lot of the same things I went through. Just, trying to clean up a lot of the things in your life and help identify some of those visions, purposes, and mission statements that drive you. And I was like, man, I wish everybody could do this. Like, because it makes you more prepared. It makes you more cognizant of the time that you're spending. It cleans up a lot of different areas in your life. And I was like, man, because again, and we'll save this for the next conversation because I know we're running short on time. When we talk about some of the race issues we're seeing right now, we're talking about economics and oppression and just systematic racism, things that a lot of stuff happening in our community. I'm big on not waiting for anyone else to fix our problems. Like, let's put our big boy pants on, you know what I mean? Man up, you know what I mean? Because we need minority leadership, specifically in men, to kind of take that throne back, you know what I mean? And I don't say that from a earthly perspective. I say that from a kingdom perspective, meaning that it's time for us to truly realize who God has called us to be, to lead our families, to lead our communities, to lead our state, our nation, to just pull us up and really stop depending on someone else to come fix it for us. Because if we're sitting here waiting, we're going to keep waiting for a long time. You know what I mean? Right now we're filming before the election. I don't know when this will come out, but like, no matter who wins, neither party is is going to say, hey, here's what you need to, to fix everything that is wrong with, our community. So, it's going to take God. It's going to take us all listening to him, identifying our purpose, and really pushing forward for drastic change. Man, this is super, super good, man. Anything that you want to leave the audience with on like a closing note before we get into our seven?
Yeah. I just want to encourage, anyone who might be watching this. I think that you're watching it by divine appointment. I really believe that what Ben, his vision, is about making sure that you don't stay where you are.
For sure.
You're watching this because you know that there's more, you know that there's greater, you know that there's better. You're trying to establish legacy for yourself. If maybe you have a family,
Yes.
you want your children to see something different. You want to shift, and I want to let you know that that shift is entirely possible. It's hard work. It's principle based, but it is the most rewarding journey that you will ever take. You know, I often tell people, and now, you know, we'll get to the 7. You know, I have this kind of 40 to 45 principle. You know, people typically work for 40 to 45 years before they retire.
Okay.
Okay, you know, if you come out, you're 20, 21 or whatever, you might work 40, 45 years. What if each one of those years represented a minute, and you only had 40 to 45 minutes left in your life? How would you spend those last 40 to 45 minutes?
That's a book within itself. That's deep.
I bet you the priorities would change.
Yeah.
I bet you the focus would become very, very clean and keen. You know, I want you to understand that you can do what you put your mind to, and that mind being submitted to what God has called you to do, it makes all the difference. And you know, I want to just say to you how proud I am of you.
Oh man.
And what you're doing and how you're contributing to the lexicon of leadership, and how even millennials and younger and even older, because what you're doing is blessing me, and I don't know what I am. I think I'm an X.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know what I am. I'm a child of God.
Like it depends. These websites, man, they switch up the ages and the numbers. I don't know. It's kind of confusing.
But when I hear, you know, the stories and the testimonies, when I see the impact that you're making, it's refreshing to me to know that there are clarion and clear voices that really want to see men move to the next level.
Man, I'm telling you, it's important, and I gotta throw the same love back, because what you and Pastor Marsha have meant to me and my wife throughout this journey. Anyone knows me, this has been a journey, to say the least, man. So for you guys to see us grow, help us grow, continue to pray for us, it's important to just have that support system. And I'm real keen on relationships, real keen on support, having a team that really just is there and present, and you guys are all of that, man. So man, it's all love. It's actually Pastor Appreciation Month right now, so we got you guys a gift, so we'll sit tight for that.
All right.
But again, on camera, thank you. I really can't find the words, but I just want to say thank you.
It's our pleasure, man.
For sure. All right, man. So again, man, thanks for tuning in to the Kickback, man. Y'all know we usually end with a quick top 7. This week, I'm going to ask Pastor A what's his top 7 restaurants, man. What y'all don't know about him is he's a big foodie. He loves food of all kinds. And I don't know, I'm interested to see how he break this down, because, if it hit his approval, then it gets the solidified stamp. So I'm interested. Where we at?
So here's where we are, man. I thought that my list would be different.
Okay.
But when I kind of mused it over in my mind, it's gonna sound it might sound kind of funny to some people. All right. So here are my top 7. You want me to go from 7 up or from 1
down? If they're in order, go from 7 up.
7 up. All right. Yeah. Y'all gonna laugh at me.
Okay.
But I didn't discover this until the pandemic.
Shoot, I'm interested.
Texas Roadhouse.
Oh wow. Huh. Yo, they biscuit style? Oh, them rolls.
The rolls.
Ooh.
The rolls will add to your life in ways
them
you
rolls
don't want.
Them rolls something different.
But I'm a steak aficionado.
Okay.
And I was pleasantly surprised at how they have done me.
I can deal with that.
A couple times during the pandemic when I couldn't get to my favorite steak spot.
I understand.
I just I can't do it, but let me just go get some pickup really quick from Texas Roadhouse. It worked.
Gotcha.
Number 6, Del Frisco's.
Wow.
Yeah.
With that number 6? I would think that would be higher. That's interesting.
No, it's number 6. Again, steak, and typically when my wife and I go out, she's going to get more of a kind of a seafood fish kind of
Gotcha.
flair. So that's a good.
They do both. Yeah,
they do
I
both
get that.
very
I get
very
that.
well.
So we see a big steak theme here so far. Okay, all right.
Number 5 is somewhere you probably never heard of, but if you're ever in the Culpeper, Virginia area, it's called Flavor on Main.
Okay, I haven't heard of it.
And Culpeper is an hour from DC and about 45 minutes from Charlottesville.
Okay.
So when I was on business and healthcare, 3 of the hospitals that I was responsible for were in the DC area.
Gotcha.
So sometimes I would fly into Charlottesville, where University of Virginia is, and then drive into Culpeper. Flavor on Main in Culpeper.
What's what they sell? American Fusion?
American
Gotcha,
Fusion.
gotcha.
American Fusion, really good. Number 4, I discovered in Houston's airport, not because I went went to that interview in Houston, but because I was in Houston on other business, Papados.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I think there's a Papados in Atlanta, and there's a Papados in Birmingham.
Yep.
But there's a Papados in the airport
I did not know that.
in Houston, and I almost missed my flight because I was tearing into that. If I didn't have my little app on my phone to notify me of boarding,
it would have been something different.
and you talking about, you see brothers and you see stuff. I think it was an OJ commercial where he was running and leaping through the airport. That was me, because I wasn't gonna sit there and just wolf it down. It was so good.
Oh, that's funny.
So good to the point when Marsha and I went to Dallas on ministry business. We were in Dallas for 4 days, and we ate at Papados 3 of those 4 days in Dallas. We just kept going back.
Especially if you can get something, or even if you get the same thing. If it's that good,
I get the same
it's trustworthy.
thing.
I get
Yeah,
it.
man. Ruth Chris. That's my number 1 steak place.
Always a win. I can see that. They got a good lamb too.
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
That's what Marsha gets when she gets the lamb chop. Number 2, you've never been here.
Okay.
It's called Piccola's Kitchen.
Nah, I know.
That's my mother-in-law, man.
Oh.
Anything that she turns on a stove or an oven to do is fine by me.
Really?
I have had no bad thing from her.
That's amazing.
I've been with her daughter for over 20 years.
Oh man.
I have had no bad thing. Shout out to my mother-in-law,
Yeah,
Piccola.
shout out to the mother-in-law.
Oh my gosh.
Miss Lottie, she do her thing too.
Oh, yes, she does.
Hey, shout out to the mother-in-law. That's
Shout out.
always a pleasant surprise, to say the least.
Shout out to the Sanka Queens.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Piccola, I've been begging her for years. I will finance a restaurant for you.
Man.
So
she just don't not with it.
and she and Marsha, they don't cook by measuring. They just know how much stuff to put.
Oh, that's
in
how you
stuff.
know you nice. Yeah, I like that.
Oh my
I
gosh,
like
they
that.
can do it blindfolded.
That's how you know you nice. That's good.
So number 1, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world is my kitchen.
Pastor Marshall or Samuel? Which one?
Both.
All right.
We were joking before we started taping about how much of a mother's boy my son is.
Right.
It works well for me because he loves to cook. His mother loves to cook. Some of the best times they have are in the kitchen.
That's dope.
And they were in the kitchen even last night, talking, loving on each other, making pumpkin bars.
dope.
I mean, just will blow your mind. So,
Man, shout out to Samuel too, by the way, man.
got the
That's
best
my guy.
son ever.
That's my guy.
He's my dude. They love to cook. Like my son, not too long ago, man, I posted on Instagram, he made lobster tails for lunch.
That's wild.
Who does that?
That's how you know they living good too, boy. Hey, who eat lobster tails for lunch?
No, my wife knows how to find us. My wife has a GPS for the sales.
I
She
understand.
knows where the sales are. But man, listen, I'm talking about it now, but I'm thinking about it. And I got to get home because the kitchen has food in it. Because I got 2 people who love to cook. I can't remember the last time that I actually cooked a meal, because between the 2 of them,
Oh, it's a beautiful place.
you know, God takes care of me so well through them.
So, man, thank you, Pastor A, for blessing us with your presence, man. Like, this has really been a great conversation. And honestly, I didn't even get to touch on everything that I wanted to. So we'll have to get you back for a part 2. So before we get out of here, man, everybody make sure you go check out his book, Renovating the Mind. It's on Amazon. And also, man, leave us with your at so the people will know where to find you.
Yeah, social media. The church is at We Are Dunamis. That's on Instagram. And my personal IG account is at Abdullah Birdsong.
Absolutely.
Would love to connect with you. Would love to just be a part of you and part of your community, what you're trying to do. I'm all here to about support and I want to connect and know how we can help you.
All right, man. Hey, so we're putting a bow on this thing. Thanks for tuning in to the Kickback, man. I think it's been a very good conversation, and I'll see y'all next episode. Thanks, and see y'all later, man.
All right,
Peace.
y'all.